no countries should be impinged on in terms of sovereignty.
So concessions. Number one, the Albanian nation conceded the fact that there's sovereignty. Second, we conceded the fact that there is anarchy. However, you cannot make states follow in full suit the pursuit of environmental concessions. If you do not,
let me finish. Okay, you will have the floor after this. Okay. Again, going back to your point previously that has been answered by yours truly, the delegate of Zimbabwe believes that you cannot generalize. If one country fails to observe or to comply with the provisions or the stipulations in this resolution, you cannot take it against, say for example, the rest, the 99% who would actually like to follow this to the best of their faith. If the rest of the delegation would actually believe that the jurisdiction and sanctioning in the local sense or in the domestic policies of the country is going to be instrumental in the first place in the preservation of the environment, number two, in ensuring that there's sustainable water security and supply, then why not? What's keeping us away from following this as a domestic or local recommendation? If it's sad to say this, but Zimbabwe sees that Albania is leaning towards the violation of the stipulations of the resolution in the first place. I rest my case.
For numerous numbers of time, Albania has been cut off from this speech. We did not say that you wanted a policy that actually infringes on the sovereignty, a la the Security Council enforcement actions. What we were trying to say is that no state, no country, especially major powers, will accede to these kinds of stipulations if they are not economically incentivized. Because all we see right here are sanctions. But because of the fact that many countries choose to give more importance towards the economy rather than the environment, they still attempt to violate the principles of environmental sustainability. Ergo, we still had the failure of the Kyoto Protocol. We think that proposing tax breaks for one through, let's say, the World Trade Organization or other related bodies would further incentivize these kinds of nations so that, number one, they will not incur losses vis-a-vis these kinds of sanctions, but also another note, since they want to become greater economic superpowers through taxes and other kinds of economic concessions, we will make them follow the kind of spirit of environmental sustainability that they want to uphold at the end of the day.
Then where is sovereignty in your proposition, delegate?
Sovereignty, we tell you, is still upheld at the end of the day because we'll still uphold the recommendatory nature of this, and then through talks with, let's say, the WTO, the nations can agree with among themselves if they want it or not.
Not impose any sanctions in the first
To
place.
all delegates,
That's why it's called recommendation.
I urge
It's
you
not
to
enforcement.
collect yourselves and please lend me your ears as I address the question and concerns of the delegate from Albania. Again, in the second final time, if there is such a thing, that I am addressing this issue. I believe that your concern is companies or violators will take this as a weak point in our resolution and take advantage of this in a way that perpetuates their belief that they can pay to actually destroy the environment, if I take you correctly. And furthermore, you believe that this part of the resolution perpetuates that. On the other hand, I think you are actually missing the point, and you are skipping on the benefit of this is because this actually provides an incentive for the state to police itself, to get funds, and number three, this provides sanctions on top of already existing institutions that are providing, that are giving pressures to these violators. And again, we as an institution cannot oversee, cannot proceed, cannot overpower or impose our will on the state. We can only give them so much sovereignty to police themselves. The only thing that this does is recommend how to do that. And this,
my colleague may intervene.
Yes, sir.
Just to break it down to the delegate of Albania, though, and this is the last argument that the delegate of Zimbabwe is going to place, and the delegate of Zimbabwe is actually compelling the rest of the delegation in this body right now that after the point that delegate of Zimbabwe is going to make, after this debate anyways, we're going to put this into a vote. But just to break it down to the delegate of Albania, to to actually dissect the provision further, it says that all member states are to abide by the policies provided by the involved body, meaning that the provisions to, in an international sense, that we are going to be compliant in terms of keeping some sort of a status quo in terms of actually putting into consideration the amount of security that you're going to be putting in terms of preserving the environment and the supply of water. Next, the states and this local jurisdiction will be accountable for environmental violation. And accountability in this sense is actually going to go back to the detriments of environmental degradation in the local sense. It will not, for example, if the country of Albania is guilty of actually violating environmental laws, well, to be the devil's advocate delegate of Albania, is it going to be a problem if you, sorry for the lack of a better term, if the crap that you make for yourself hits the fan, it's going to hit you back. So is it going to be everybody's concern in the first place if that happens?
But the point that everyone is missing right here, right now, is that most of the environmental issues right now is that tackled with the industrialized countries such as the big states. For example, most of the violators are the big states, and most of the victims are the smaller states. But if we will give this sovereignty, if we will give this very weak point of this resolution, then there's no resolution at all.
No, clearly the delegate of Zimbabwe, and I would believe that the delegate of the United States, the delegate of Sudan, and the delegate of Liberia would think that your recommendation is actually very backward, delegate. What it is that in terms of hampering industrialization, which of course is coupled with producing waste that are harmful, that is why a part of this jurisdictional control is not exactly to restore the environment the way it was, because that's the point that Saudi Arabia made. You can never do that. Case in point, considering that that is true, fine. We're not going to take it against you, Saudi Arabia, if you think that that is not possible. However, the sanctions that we are talking about in here in terms of local jurisdiction is that if restoration is not made, then we have this term that we call rehabilitation. Okay, if you're gonna put it back to its usual state, at least just put it back, because that's the price that we have to pay for industrialization. I mean, countries like, I believe, the Philippines yourselves, the United States, Liberia, in case, the price that we have to pay for advancement of science, of technology, of the industry, of the business, of the multinational corporations is always going to be pollution and the degradation of the environment, whether you like it or not.
But if you will just entrust this resolution on the domestic level, if you will say
delegate, based on the bird's eye view, this is just one part of the stipulations in the resolution that we're dissecting. Now, to backtrack to the previous resolutions, that's why the Honorable Office of the Rapporteurs and the Chair actually recommended that the stipulations in this resolution are going to be fashioned in some sort of a funnel, meaning that it goes from the very vague for the general and into the very case-specific important matters that need to be discussed. Therefore, the delegate of Zimbabwe is in accordance with the delegate of Liberia and the United States and the Sudan, and the India and Pakistan as well, who authored this resolution to the best of their ability, that this is out of the question. Everyone, this is out of the question. We are not debating because of the jurisdiction of the country, which, at the very beginning cannot be impinged on by any outside control. And if Albania, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that one way to compel the nations is to impose sanctions on them as well. Is that what you're saying?
Tax breaks through the World Trade Organization in other economic concessions.
Well, tax breaks, I believe Zimbabwe is delegate, excuse me. Oh, okay. Okay, now, delegate of Albania, if this is going to be a tax break in terms of how they fare the World Trade Union, this is just as good as actually having non-direct barriers. And that's the reason why the World Trade Center is here to police. The World Trade Organization is here to be able to police, and the World Bank.
Delegate, your time has been exhausted. Are there any motions on the floor? Delegate of Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe would like to do a motion for this resolution.